As exciting as Marathon looks, there are 6 things that could doom this game into failure. It's not that I expect Marathon to fail, it's more around the fact that I've had this feeling before with Bungie. Look, they're incredible at selling potential. The hard part for them has always been about what happens after launch. So if you're excited for Marathon, this video will help you understand why some people are cautious, and if you're skeptical, you'll probably feel validated at the end. Bungie has made it really clear that Marathon is a long-term live service, and the good news is that they know all about supporting a game for a long time. Through ups and downs, they've kept Destiny 2 active for nearly a decade. But the concern here is when you focus on what's happened with Destiny 2, specifically content droughts. There were major empty periods between major content expansions at times in that series. Seeing long stretches where the core loop barely changed and seasonal content felt more like remixing the same ideas instead of pushing the game forward will give a lot of Destiny players nightmares just thinking about it. And while Marathon and Destiny are definitely different games, they do share a common element: the grind. That grind needs balance, just as important as it needs content. Bungie had a pretty big controversy with their audience in Destiny, where they removed paid content from the game permanently, and you could argue there was a technical reason to do so, but it really ruined long-term trust with that audience. And if you take that same context in a Marathon, you can understand the frustration. And just as big as the additional content post-launch has to be Marathon including endgame content. Arc Raiders, for example, offers events with the Queen and the Matriarch, amongst other events, but it doesn't really feel like true endgame content. Bungie has a history of building incredible raids in the Destiny series, and they have to deliver equally strong endgame content in Marathon. We know about the Cryo Archive and how that appears to be an incredible experience that really requires you to bring in your best loot, but ensuring players have amazing rewards for the hardest experiences has to be something that Bungie nails. Extraction shooters live and die on momentum. Small changes and fast iteration is always going to matter here. The issues that plague Destiny 2 could honestly kill Marathon, and it's no secret that Bungie has to be better with a brand new audience. And while the post-launch content and endgame content matters a ton, this one might matter almost more than anything else in my opinion. How good will Bungie be around cheating? Extraction shooters and really all competitive games need a strong anti-cheat with zero tolerance for offenders. And if you look at Bungie's track record with Destiny, things get a little scary. Destiny 2 really struggled heavily with cheating on PC for a very long time before BattlEye was introduced. And BattlEye did improve things a bit, but the enforcement leaned more towards delayed ban waves rather than immediate action. And based on what we see in the gaming industry, you can kind of get away with that a little bit more in a traditional PvP environment, especially when there's a heavy PvE element within it. But that does not work in an extraction shooter. A cheater in traditional PvP makes you lose a match, but in an extraction shooter, you're losing gear and progress. And while the game will have a $40 price barrier to help slow down cheating, it will still be a major issue that Bungie really has to address. Just look at Arc Raiders and the sheer amount of cheating issues they've encountered while having the same price tag. The good news is that Marathon will be using a kernel-level anti-cheat for Marathon with BattlEye, but it's important to remember that an anti-cheat is only as good as the integration given by the devs in the game. The difference that we hope for here is that Marathon is being designed with an anti-cheat from the beginning, whereas Destiny added it after years of already being live. The cheat companies and providers will always be looking to make a quick buck. It's just up to Bungie to be actively eliminating those threats, because this is one area where Bungie does not get a learning curve if they want Marathon to truly thrive. If you're into deep dives like this on some of the biggest games and shooters out there, hit the subscribe button and help me reach my goal of 10,000 subscribers before this year is over. Look, it's free to do, and I've got plenty more content like this coming your way. Now back to the video. Switching gears a little bit, live events are something that Bungie is all too familiar with, and they've already let us know that they're coming in Marathon. Despite the planet being essentially abandoned in-game, their goal is really that Marathon feels like it's a living world. And from Bungie's perspective, if your goal is to keep players in Marathon week to week, a big part of that has to be through nailing live events. We've seen a promise of living or evolving worlds before from Bungie, however. A big complaint for a lot of Destiny's live events was that they historically leaned towards being more observational. They were often cool to witness, but the interaction within them felt kind of limited. Watching Rasputin destroy the Almighty, for example, was cool to witness, but it really felt like the build-up deserved something more substantial. So you have to wonder, can Bungie avoid events in Marathon feeling passive where players just stand in space and watch something happen? Can the events that actually happen leave a lasting impact in the world instead of just returning or resetting it back to the state it was before the event? The events in Marathon need consequences to play out in the world and in the gameplay, a change in AI behavior, loot routes being shifted. The risk should feel completely different after something big happens through a live event in Marathon. And truthfully, the days of live events just being flair are definitely gone. Fortnite really found a way to deliver spectacle while also allowing users to be involved and shape the world. And Bungie really has to prove that they can do the same in Marathon, maybe not to that level, but honestly more in that vein. Next up, we're going to talk about weapon balancing and weapon metas. In an extraction shooter, losing because of a balance issue can be crippling for a game's audience, and if Bungie really had a superpower, it'd without a doubt be gunplay. No one is really questioning that. But through all the information that Bungie has released around Marathon, they've focused heavily on Marathon's sandbox being this data-driven, carefully tuned, competitive thing at its core. But when you take a step back and actually examine Destiny's history here, I think things get a little complicated. Destiny players really suffered from numerous periods where a single meta dominated for months at a time. The PvP experience was ruined with overtuned weapons that stuck around far longer than players really wanted them to. And Bungie historically has talked a lot about letting metas breathe in their games, and again, they're heavily data-driven, and the last thing they want to do is have a knee-jerk reaction. In theory, I agree with them. But when you're talking about an extraction shooter, that is a dangerous philosophy to have. If one weapon becomes too dominant, every death feels worse. You run the risk of being like Arc Raiders, where everyone runs a Venator or a Renegade because they're far superior to the other weapons available in the game. When your gear is on the line, frustration stacks up fast. Bungie has always understood the power fantasy in PvE, but extraction shooters require restraint and precision here. I do honestly believe that Bungie understands the balance, but the concern really is around their philosophy fitting this genre that demands swift change in extraction shooters. The next question we have to ask Bungie is one that I don't know if they're truly ready to address. It's about the identity of Marathon. Bungie has stated that Marathon is this high-stakes PvP-focused game built around risk versus reward, and on paper, it sounds like a strong commitment, but there's a lot to really take into account here. Extraction shooters are built around loss. You are going to fail, you are going to lose gear, and honestly, sometimes the game is just not going to be fair. But for really any extraction shooter, there are two clear communities, those who prefer PvP and those who prefer PvE. To be a successful extraction shooter, you have to find ways to appease both sides while maintaining your identity. Marathon's factions seem like they're giving lanes for each side, which is good news because there's really a faction dedicated entirely to PvP. But again, looking at Destiny's history, because it's the closest comparison we really have here, the skepticism really sets in. Destiny 2 was supposed to have Bungie split their focus between the PvP and PvE side of things, and if you ask any Destiny 2 player, the handling of PvP over the last few years for Destiny 2 was abysmal, to put it politely. Balance issues, metas that lasted way too long, broken weapons and builds, the list really does feel like it goes on for what seems like forever. If Marathon truly wants to be the extraction shooter on the market, it has to walk a delicate line here. The experience can't feel too punishing, but can't feel too casual. And if you're truly going after the PvP crowd with Marathon, it's the right move, because when you build a game for everyone, you've essentially built a game for no one. Fans of the game just have to hope that they can stick to their guns on building a game based around that identity. Everything we've discussed builds to the final major question for Marathon: can Bungie nail a story? There's no denying that Bungie knows how to nail the lore in their games. Their universe in Destiny is massive, and for the most part it's deeply loved, but the story has had significant growing pains from ranging before launch to even present day. A lot of key narrative details lived outside of the game early on, the storytelling had major plot holes or things that just did not make sense, and plenty of story arcs were rushed or just dropped entirely. And to be fair and give them credit, Bungie did fix a lot of this, but it felt like it only happened after sustained criticism. Through everything that Bungie has released on Marathon, it's easy to see the storytelling is a central element for them, but storytelling through extraction gameplay already fragments the narrative flow a bit. Players launch in, they die, they reset, and they repeat. If the story is too subtle, people miss it and then they're confused. If it's too hard to understand, people disengage because they're confused. It's pretty clear that Bungie is leaning hard into the factions in the game to tell the story and unravel details, but how many players are going to be willing to pay attention when the extraction genre typically has not put an emphasis on the story? With Marathon though, Bungie really has a chance to right their wrongs and learn from their mistakes with Destiny. Finding a way to deliver a story that the majority of players care about and feel invested in is really going to be a tough task, but they have the pedigree to make it happen. Raising these questions doesn't really mean that Marathon is going to fail. These questions just simply exist because Bungie is capable of getting this right. We are so far past the era of trust being built on trailers. It's up to Bungie to deliver a consistent, engaging experience that has risk and reward that we've all really been craving. And I also think it's important to say that it doesn't need to be perfect on day one, but it does need to show that Bungie has learned important lessons from the past before players burn out on another one of their titles. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking and which question is the most important that Bungie answers for you. You can check out another one of my videos on the screen right now. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the way down.